We're going to talk about something that is a very hot and interesting topic around a part of our population, aging in place for seniors. I know a few years back when I worked at the housing provider, we went as so far as to create a whole new entity that took care of seniors in that whole aging in place process. But I'm so glad to be joined by friends and colleagues who are experts in the space from my perspective that can talk about this. But before we get into the actual chatting and the banter, as we've been doing for the last 15 minutes or so, I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and I'll throw it over to Lisa. Lisa, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, go Jays, go, right?
Yeah, go Jays, go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We're in the blue too. Smart.
Yeah.
Way to go.
You know, I couldn't go all out Blue Jays because I'm doing a presentation.
Fair.
That would be a little weird.
You know what? I always say we should be able to wear baseball caps all the time. They're professionals, so
That's true.
they get paid a lot more than me to wear baseball hats to work.
It's a perspective.
So introduce yourself and where you're from.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Lisa Levin. I'm the CEO of AdvantAge Ontario, and AdvantAge Ontario is an association of, we have around 800 members across Ontario. Around 260 are long-term care homes, and the rest are housing and community services, and all of our members provide services for older adults. And I can tell you more about what our association does, but I think I'm supposed to do that after.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Chat more, and you want to hear more, because I think, as I said, it's an important part of our demographic right now, and you guys are doing good work, so I want to hear more about it.
But I also want to say that I started my career in the housing space, and I actually started working in the Ministry of Housing, developing nonprofit housing in the late 80s.
Okay, so you'll
Last time
so it's
it
like
was
my
developed,
roots. This is my roots.
Welcome home.
Last time it was developed.
Welcome home, and you'll have interesting perspective on how to connect this all, right? Because I think that's, if we're talking about aging in place, the place is your house, your place is your home, and a lot of people, especially seniors in our space, are on fixed incomes, etc. So the nonprofit space is a very welcoming spot for our senior demographic. So look forward to hearing more.
Okay.
Deanna, how are you? Welcome back. You're becoming you're looking like to be a podcast regular out here.
I'm so lucky.
Jumping from company to company. Now she's back on the provider side.
That's right.
Deanna, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Andrew. I was here last time in a different capacity, so I'm happy to be here again. My name is Deanna Veltri. My current role is the Director of Engagement, Partnerships, and Communications at Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. So we are the entity that was born about 3 years ago officially, with a specific mandate to support 15,000 low and moderate income Torontonians over the age of 59. The vast majority of our tenants are over the age of 70 and older. It's very exciting to be part of this organization. I joined about 6 months ago. I've had a few chapters of my career, always as a houser. I spent some time at Toronto Community Housing, working on strategic and service delivery projects. Spent a number of years in the private sector, consulting for everyone but banks. I've worked for government exclusively, never for a financial institution, I like to say. So kept up my knowledge of what public sector is up to, and then was very excited to come back and join the executive team at TSHC. And what we're doing around aging in place is very interesting, and I'm excited to be on this panel and talk a little bit about those practices.
Can't wait to hear. Thanks, Adam, my man, what's going on? How are you?
Doing good.
Introduce yourself. You're our fancy titled guy at ONPHA, and we love it. So tell us who you are and what you do and all the fancy things that are part of your role.
Well, hi, everyone. I feel like it's easy to almost forget that there's an audience when we're so tapped in here.
That's the whole point, man. Just make it entertaining and fun.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Adam Fraser. I'm with ONPHA. My title is a data scientist. Over the previous years, ONPHA, we've really evolved our capacity around research, so I'm also taking on some of our research lead initiatives as well. Aside from the research side, support our policy and an advocacy team as well. Maybe just leave it with that. But.
Awesome. Data scientist, man. I'm telling you, man.
It's so impressive.
I'm telling you.
Still so inadequate.
Right?
Listen, I just wanted to pass science, and you're a data scientist. So, I mean, totally different spectrums here, bro. So let's get into it, because I was talking about it, and I'm actually going to throw it out to the group and maybe get your perspectives on it. But I'll throw the opening salvo out around what is aging in place, because as Deanna mentioned, the organization that she worked for now, officially became a thing 3 years ago. But I remember when I worked at TSHC, I was in a room, and it was kind of a concept coming out of a task force initiative by then Mayor Tory and a bunch of other people. That was the task force, or Tenants First, and all the other things. And I thought it was a cool concept. But then, when we got into it, I realized that I think at the crux of it, it was really around ensuring that people had good health outcomes and all these other things at the end of it. But when we looked at the math, like our seniors were starting at age 59, right? So a TSHC senior, 58, 59, you're in the building. Surprisingly, I'm not too far away from that. So I'm thinking I'm about to be a senior. And I mean, my version of 59 to maybe 69 aging in place will be different than somebody who was like my mother near the, and my dad near the end of life, where, they just wanted better health outcomes with respect to supports and everything else while they were, in their last few days. So it's a wide range for me, but I think that's why I wanted to have this important discussion, because I think if people are trying to do this as part of supports for their tenants, et cetera, you can get pigeonholed and maybe get into some trouble in some instances, and you may be getting blinders on because you may want to go down one specific path, right? So for me, it's like you got to really broaden your lens as to what it means to take care of the seniors aging population and letting them live where they want to be, stay where they want to be, stay where they're familiar. But know that that's a wide gap. I mean, if you're thinking you go from 59 to, let's just call it 80, 85 if you're good, right? That's a lot of years, different things happening. At 59, I want to play pickleball. And, as I said, at 80, I want to make sure somebody comes and checks on me, make sure I'm okay. So, Lisa, just want to do a little roundtable on your versions of what that means and what what aging in place is to you and your organization and your members.
So aging in place isn't a new concept. And in fact, I did my master's research on it and thought, wow, the baby boomers are eventually going to get older and we're going to have to do something about it. Here we are, it's 2025, not much has been done. It's pretty shocking. But I would also say that aging is very different for different people. So someone with a developmental disability will become a quote unquote senior much younger than 65.
There you go.
And people age at really different rates. So depending on what kind of illness and chronic disease you have, as well as unfortunately social determinants of health, your aging experience will vary. But I think the important thing about aging in place is that you need to make it centered on what the tenant needs and what the senior or older adult needs, and base it on that. And like you said, it could vary. You could have the 80-year-old, like my friend's dad still skis, he's 88. And like everybody's different and their needs are different. So you need to determine what the needs are of the individuals living in the buildings or in the neighborhoods and try and meet those.
Awesome. Deanna, what about you? Where are you at with the notion?
Yeah, a lot of good things. A ditto to everything Lisa said. What I would add, and I think about it again from my lens, we're housing providers. We do have an integrated service model where we have been tasked with supporting seniors to age in place. So if I ground it in where I sit in terms of an organization, very similar to Lisa's comments, aging in place for me is creating the conditions for people to thrive at home independently. Again, we are independent living. We are, social housing providers. We are not a long-term care home or supportive housing at this time. So really for me, it's about creating the conditions for the right partners, the right people to come in and help people age based on where they're at. And that comes with, as Lisa spoke to, a ton of nuance and a ton of complexity with that variation. But for us, it really boils down to meeting people where they're at, where they live, supporting them to thrive. And really, my team specifically does a lot of work around tenant engagement and partnerships with other organizations, fighting social isolation. That social isolation negatively impacts health outcomes and negatively impacts social outcomes, mental health outcomes. So we're really focused on meeting people where they're at and supporting them in that way with the space and the ability we have as a housing provider.
Cool. Adam, I want you to add a lens to your version of it because you dove deep, right? So, inside baseball, ONPHA did a whole research on innovations and aging in place, and so what do you got right into it? You went scientific, and you probably have the 45-minute version of aging in place in your head. Give me the 45-second.
I'll try to distill it. I'll try not to just repeat everything that we've heard already because I feel like they really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But when looking across different jurisdictions with their own efforts to enhance aging in place supports in their jurisdictions, resonate a lot with what Deanna and Lisa said there, that it really is about meeting the residents where they are at, since there seems to be a lot of different approaches that do really provide a lot of value for seniors aging in place the way that they would like to. I think we tend to strongly associated with health outcomes, of course, but here in some jurisdictions that believe social engagement and stuff of that sort is just as of great importance, as what Deanna mentioned there. And so I believe sometimes it's not consistently applied across regions, and organizations who've made efforts to sort of co-design their approach with their residents, they often come to surprises about what they really value the most. And I don't believe it's always the health outcomes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's maybe roll into that around the prescriptive stuff, because sometimes you get a mandate, you got to go do something. So you think, I'm gonna create like a mini care home or something like that. It's not quite what it is. So, Lisa, I would just love to hear more about what's happening in the space with AdvantAge and its members, and kind of what you've been seeing in these little tiers. Because I will want to circle back to some of the research Adam did and some of the cool stuff he found. Similarly with you, Deanna, I'm going to ask you both the same question. Lisa, you can go first. But it's, what are you guys doing at AdvantAge now, your members, et cetera? What's been happening? What have you been seeing? What are some of the trends? And I love the fact that you did your master's in this a long time ago. Because
my master's was in urban planning, but my research,
which
was funded by CMHC, was on seniors.
They should have listened to you 30 years ago.
They should have listened.
That's fine. But carry on.
We have a wide range of members, and some of them are just long-term care homes. A number of them have campuses of care with long-term care, seniors housing, and community services. Some are standalone seniors housing. And a lot of them are really deeply tied in with their communities. Many of them are run by municipalities. A number of them are run by different cultural and community groups, and really grassroots. And there's a wide variety of housing that our members have. So some have just independent living and apartments. Others have what's called life lease housing, which a lot of people don't know about, but there's a fair bit of it, and it's a really great affordable housing option. We have nonprofit retirement housing members. We have members with, my favorite, supportive housing, which is housing with rent geared to income units, so it's affordable, and supports in place. So it's like, I call it a retirement home for people who can't afford retirement homes. And so the problem, though, is that government funding in this area has, it came out a few, maybe 20 years ago, and it's just contracted. It hasn't grown. So the services have eroded over time.
Right.
And we see that this is such low-hanging fruit. This is such a great solution to the challenge we're having with our aging population, is to provide more supports in people's homes, in people's apartments, so they can age in place.
Yeah.
And it's so much cheaper. It's where people want to be.
Yes.
And so our members are doing this, and we advocate on their behalf. So that's part of what we do, is we advocate and lobby. And we also do policy papers, trying to be thought leaders. And we also have an education center for our members as well. And we provide them lots of tools and supports.
Fantastic. Deanna, integrated service model, you kind of talked about that. So, that's kind of what you do. So give us a rundown of that and how it's a thing and how it became to be. It feels like it's a little bit of what Lisa would have described, but I want to hear from the perspective of, you guys are an actual dedicated not-for-profit agency that is doing this. So
yeah, I call ourselves pretty unique in the sector, given that we're a local housing corporation. So a little bit of history. Again, TSHC was born out of a mayor's task force many years ago now, and ultimately manifested in this entity that now exists. So the integrated service model was this, and it still is, a very innovative way of structuring how we do our work. So not only is TSHC accountable for what I think most of you are as housing organizations underneath the Housing Services Act, the Residential Tenancies Act, we have all of those responsibilities, but we have now been given this inherent mandate to help people that are living in our buildings to age in place. So that has led to, as you can imagine, a whole host of governance approaches, operational approaches that are really unique to that model, and inherently reliant on other sectors. So whereas maybe, when I spent my time as a housing professional, not at TSHC, much of the work that we did was housed within the housing system, the affordable housing system, the social housing system. There were interactions, of course, with social services and with the health sector, but a lot of our work really stayed in that lane. In Toronto Seniors Housing, it's completely different.
Right.
We have two equal lanes that we drive in. We actually have two masters in a way, right? We report through the service manager manager as a housing corporation, and then we also work with the city's senior services and long-term care division and hold on to a number of accountabilities to again help seniors age in place. And what that really looks like, if I really boil it down, one of the big principles I think we live by is not for tenants without tenants. So we've spent a lot of time as an organization co-designing, collaborating directly with tenants at the outset of our organization, but every day since. A big part of my job is making sure that we work with our tenants to implement the health, the social services that they need to thrive. So not only do we do that piece, but the integrated service model, again, because we need to work with other systems, has really pushed us to do that in a more formal way than maybe has been done in the past. Again, in my past life, lots of strong partnerships at the ground level. Buildings were getting really great supports from longstanding partnerships, but there wasn't necessarily those conversations at the system level with the health sector, with the social services sector, to say, how do we inherently integrate you into our communities? Not just be one of your various groups of clients that you may choose to come to, but we need to work together to actually build structures and systems that work for our tenants, because we've been asked to do so by City Council, by the mayor of the city. And at the same time, we know that these other sectors are getting that same pressure. How are you moving into the home care space? How are you thinking about supporting people where they live in the spectrum of supports that they need? So the integrated service model really pushed, I would say, our organization into a new space, which is exciting. It's challenging. It requires us to think outside the box as primarily housing professionals, if you will, and bringing and learning from those around us. So it's a really, really interesting model.
Yeah, be careful driving over the lanes.
We're crossing lanes all the time. Sometimes they try to bump us over, but
at least they're going the same direction. Like if you're doing just stay safe over there.
Yeah, we'll try.
Indicator light on.
100%. Indicate. Strap the seatbelt. Adam, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a different question, because again, we have a different perspective here at ONPHA, but you looked at some of the work that has been done by agencies like AdvantAge and associations like AdvantAge and Toronto Seniors, right? But you went out and did a little bit of a scoop, right? You said, this is Canada's lens and what's going on around the world. Inside baseball. Deanna, can I say the inside baseball part? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. I was
say that.
We did a little research for Toronto Seniors, and Adam came up with some brilliant stuff that even when I saw it, I was like, holy smokes, man, they got some cool ass stuff going on in Singapore and Denmark and all these places. So give me a little bit of a table set, because I want to hear your perspective, because I want to come back to ask you a gut question about how come it's not moved in the longest time, right? So let's get your perspective on some of the stuff you found.
Hey, I'll try to give the most distilled version possible.
we got time, bro. We got time.
Yeah, very fascinating to see how how services, access to services, and coordination differ in other jurisdictions where we think of as having the most accessible, comprehensive care. When you think about Denmark, Netherlands, Singapore, it's interesting to contrast their realities when it comes to public health support to Canada or Ontario. For instance, in places like Denmark and the Netherlands, they benefit from having universal support for aging in place.
Right.
Municipally funded teams, or municipally administered teams, who will provide home care visits to seniors who need that support. Places like New York City, there's a bit of a different approach there, where they focus their funding on specific buildings or communities that have a very high concentration of seniors. But just that in itself, of just the bit more of like the universality, the reliability, coordination with public health supports, that I think we're sorely lacking here in Canada and in Ontario. But yeah, with that, it was still very uplifting to hear about comparing that with like Toronto Seniors housing, knowing the contrast in the existing conditions that other areas benefit from, but yet still providing some of those gold standard practices, such as developing your services with your tenants, having some integrated support services, or partnering with health teams to come visit your residents on site.
We're really trying to be a pocket to test those things. I don't know what scaling looks like, to be honest with you. I think that's something it's fair to say we're learning as an organization, because we are one of those places that would want to scale. But what I learned from your research is they are doing that in other parts of the world, sometimes smaller populations, but that doesn't mean there aren't lessons to be replicated. But we are trying to take those in little pockets with the funding that's available, with the buy-in that's there, with the interest that's there from other sectors to test it out.
So, yeah.
And the scale, that's something that's really interesting to me. Listening to the plenary yesterday, and almost the natural landing point of our research is we know supportive housing is long wait lists, long demand, long-term care homes, correct? I'm sure Lisa can provide more details on that. But seniors who need access to various types of senior housing, it's be a massive wait list. It's going to continue to grow exponentially. So it's not like these approaches are just relevant to Toronto seniors housing, but social housing at large.
And that's why, at least I want to bounce this right back to you. And again, I had to remind myself as I was forming the question that we're not just chatting in a coffee shop. It feels like it. It feels great, but everybody's here, and you're the CEO of an organization, but you've seen this for forever. And I think I want to lean into your personal lens on how come it's broken and how come it's not as effective as it should be. Because I think that's one of those things when we do international research, and I've always been a sucker for finding out what's going on. I know a lot of people in our sector will go on study tours and will be all over the world, and it's so amazing. You come back so inspired, then you think, I'm from Canada. We should be able to do this. We should have been doing. They should be coming here and learning from us. So where's the breaks, and how come it's not where it should be, even though it's encouraging what both organizations are doing? What was the break?
Our system is stuck in the 1960s, when the average age was, I don't know who's
Ditto.
40, 35, 38, and an acute care system. We need a chronic care system. And why is it stuck? I think part of it is inertia. Part of it is power imbalance, the power of the hospitals, some of which do amazing work in this space. And it's a change management thing. I have been racking my brain trying to figure out how to get more upstream investments into for older adults so that we can have more community support services, so that we can have more supportive housing. I want to ban all pilots. We don't need any more pilots. We have Nursing Home Without Walls. We have community wellness hubs. We have NORCs. We know what we need to do.
Right.
Let's just get on with it and do what's best in each community.
Right.
And so that's why I think if government isn't going to make the change, then we need to make the change. And that's why groups like Paul Sharman and others in Burlington and the Halton region came up with community wellness hubs.
Yes.
They thought we are not waiting. That's why Oasis came up with NORCs. Yeah. That's why Toronto UHN built Dunn House. And that's why Suzanne Blanchard-Doucette in New Brunswick did Nursing Home Without Walls.
Right.
So we're not going to wait for government anymore. Yep. And they're going to have to catch up to us.
Right. So, love it. Thank you. They'd be clapping now, but they can't. We can't hear the clapping.
Clap.
They're snapping. Theoretical.
If I can jump on it.
Yeah, I was going to jump right in.
Yeah, just as an organization that's firmly sitting upstream and wanting to bring in the acute care system, the healthcare system, we'll use them as an example, even the social services system, well before we're in the area of deep, deep need. We are facing the same challenges, right? We are approaching these sectors telling them we have a captive audience of 15,000 seniors located in communities geographically in the city, surrounded by many others. We are NORCs. We are naturally occurring retirement communities. We are ready to partner with you, but we only know so much as housing providers.
Right.
And right now, our mandate isn't to become healthcare providers or seniors care providers exclusively and only. We need to rely on those other partners, and we're not waiting either. In 2023, TSHC launched a partnership table. So this was a strategic table. We've got Ontario Health at Home at the table. We have other hospitals like the University Health Network, like Baycrest Hospital. We have social service organizations like Loft at the table with us. We're meeting at least 6 times a year to move these goals forward. So we are coming together with We are already doing a lot of this work. How do we expand? How do we do more? We actually, it's funny you're saying ban all pilots. One of the most recent conversations at the partnership table is whatever we're doing is expansion. We are not piloting anything.
Yeah.
We already do this. Let's do more. Let's try to find more space to do it. And how can TSHC be an organization of choice to help with that expansion because we have the seniors available? So I totally feel you. We're kind of operating from the same perspective. Eventually, some government money sure would help, but we're not letting that stop us so far up in the process. We're getting to what we need so we can just make more compelling asks or find the funding that works for us.
Yeah, and that's the mindset. And I think even for the last, I'd say, decade in my brain, but more actively out of my mouth, it's government doesn't want to fund anything anymore. They want to invest in things, and it's almost like you got to create it's like, I don't know, what's the thing that was it Uber or Google or something like that? What, Uber? Some guy just did it on some algorithm thing, and then everybody bought it, right? It's like, I got to prove the case, and then you'll invest in it, right? So,
Yes.
and we'll all go cut ribbons and all that kind of stuff, great, but at the end of the day, I think what you're doing sounds like the right thing, and I totally agree, because that was what Adam was kind of saying, is that, and you were saying it also, Deanna, it's like, just do it and try to scale it and try to make it work, as opposed to you do it down the street. I always think about these pilots as, if you do it across the street, everybody in that building's so happy, but their friends go to the same community center and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're not playing pickleball over here. What's going on? Mm-hmm. And then you're a different kettle of fish. And I know it's more macro than that, but it's those small things around.
Yes.
Just do it. If you're going to do it, just do it. Dive in, get it done. And I think it's almost easier to shut the whole thing off than to try to do it, to expand it piecemeal when you're making these things piloted. So go ahead.
And another question, if I may. We're talking about scale,
Are you moderating now, my friend?
Yeah, take it.
Co-host,
Got to get him under control, man.
We've heard complaints you don't have enough
got all the
energy.
knowledge.
I might have to get an
Calories.
AI Adam going and see how you feel. Get in there.
Sounds good.
Get in there.
Sounds good.
Get in there.
I'm waiting for that now.
Ask your question.
Thanks, Andrew. So we're talking about scale, NORC pilots, also that those who need these services aren't always in senior designated housing.
Yeah.
What does that ideal scale look like? Is that a NORC-based model? Or
Excellent question, my friend. Love it.
I think whatever works in the community, you have to look at what your resources are, you have to look at what your gaps are, you have to look at people's needs and figure out what works. So in some communities, the nucleus could be the long-term care home.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a program called Nursing Home Without Walls that AdvantAge Ontario is going to be piloting with funding from Healthcare Excellence Canada and Walton's Trust to allow long-term care homes to assist community dwelling seniors through the expertise of the long-term care home, but hiring navigators to go out and find out what the seniors in the community need. Not seniors who are ready for long-term care,
Yeah.
but seniors who are frail. What do they need? What resources already exist? Tell them about it, and then fill in the gaps with what doesn't. Perhaps you're in Halton Region and you have a leader like Paul Sharman. You can take your nonprofit housing in your municipality or in Toronto and put supports. If you put supports in every nonprofit seniors housing that building that was built in the 80s, you have supportive housing like automatically
Correct.
in thousands and thousands of units, and you don't have to build, you don't have to put one brick down. Or maybe it's for people who are moderate income or even maybe higher income who live in condos. My uncle lives at Bay and Bloor in this condo. He was socially isolated in his single family home. He moved to basically Yorkville, so I know he's whatever. But the point is his building is filled with older adults.
Yeah.
And that is now his social community and his social connection. And they all get together. They don't have any actual formal person doing things for them. But a lot of the NORCs obviously do. So you have to look at what your resources are and then figure out what works best in that context.
Yeah, totally. From our perspective, again, from the lane that we are mandated to operate within, we spend a lot of time scaling up how we gather those priorities and those needs from tenants. So we spend time multiple times a year gathering those priorities, getting a better understanding of what our tenants need, aggregating that information. It sounds boring, but categorizing it, doing some science with the data so that when we go out and look for partners, which is again something we can do from where we sit, we're having a really informed look locally driven, neighborhood-based conversation. You know, we're not bringing the wrong partners to the table, quite frankly. There's many types of services that tenants want and need. So we spend a lot of time scaling up our effort to understand those as best as we can from where we sit. And then in the way we can, sharing that information with the partners we want to bring in or we want to source, right? And when it works so well. We've got, again, NORC pilots happening in some of our communities through the University Health Network, which are fantastic. We have Baycrest providing neighborhood care services, and that number is growing, went from 8 buildings to 11. Like, we can't stop the growth because we don't want to, because it's producing such positive outcomes for our tenants. But even those two models are vastly different. They do different things, driving at similar outcomes, of course, around aging in place, but vastly different. So it really is about understanding what your people want and need, adding a layer of analysis on that, maybe with some broader data around, you know, health outcomes and things like that, and then hyper-focusing on the right partners. Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. Scale is about what people really need where they are, not trying to assume there's a perfect solution. And the last comment I'll make is there's also partnerships that we aren't part of that are happening in the communities. And what I mean by that is people are self-sourcing in the system. They're finding their own personal support workers or home care or supports to come to them. Though we don't necessarily fully stick our hands in that world, we are always open to those partnerships and those people coming in. Again, hyper local, hyper focused on what the people need in the moment. So I totally resonate with your comments.
Yeah, I think both your organizations are really outlining the fact that there's a opportunity is to lead in community.
Yes.
And then just make it happen. Like I always was curious about the heat map, especially when you're looking at nonprofits, people with food insecurity, people with wage insecurity, and all those other things. And I was just like, just do the heat map. You can just stack it. It's all the same place.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about health outcomes, whether it's for people at any stage of life that need support, but especially seniors. You'd probably get economies of scale by just looking at it, putting these support places in these communities, and then sprawling them out, bringing in, of course, different levels of sophistication or focus. But you can have those hubs happen, and I love how we in our sector have kind of gotten off our hands and just said we got to do it, because a lot of that, when you really think about it from a operational perspective, is kind of like Ministry of Health money. Like, you would need health money to flow through, right? And I know the top layer is always let's make sure the hospitals don't shut down or they're overrun. Well, people won't go there if they're usually getting supports in these ways, right? And in some instances, people are going there because that's the only place they can go. Yeah. So if there was intermediate steps like what you're describing through these integrated models, et cetera, you'd have these positive outcomes. So I love that's going in the bubble, no pilot. And that's 2 words, but I don't care. I'll go no pilot. Pilot. It'll come up looking good. Just one plug too. People are very engaged in the audience, but if you have questions, please put them through in the app, and I'll try to get them answered here. Let's maybe take a different turn here, because Adam, in some of your research, there were some encouraging things, especially around technology and the use of technology in the seniors sphere. We always just think seniors are sitting at home, afraid of the iPad, afraid of the telephone, and so what did you find in some of the research that you did that were some of those aha moments when it's like, oh wow, and wherever it was, they're leveraging and getting into it. And I'd love to hear what's happening on our side of the world, technology-wise.
Well, first thing is a lot of pilots.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I guess internationally, there seems to be bigger adaptation of things like wearable devices that, again, can become publicly available in places like, for example, the UK. Different local authorities will make that widely available, sometimes through housing providers, and become more common in community housing. We see less of that here in Canada, it appears, and for it's like these can be like fall detection devices, health monitoring, emergency response calls. Seems much less common in social housing contexts here in Canada, and then maybe a lot of practical challenges for that, such as the realities of our old stock, our old buildings, difficulty integrating like the Wi-Fi and the tech into that, the infrastructure to support those technologies. But even like I think simpler types of innovations there have had big impacts and satisfaction for tenants. Like really, Toronto seniors, the digital literacy training, for example, seems to be a highly effective thing for seniors in the Canadian context, and Ontario context, and even just more availability of Wi-Fi seems like
totally.
So maybe not on the same footing in the community housing context as in other jurisdictions, but I think seems like some successful approaches so far.
Yeah, I'll throw one just for that's super simple, but I remember when I was back in the day, not sure if it's happened, so somebody can tell me if it has, but I was really a big fan of turning all the cork boards in the buildings into just big digital signs.
Pilot happened.
Yay.
It was a pilot, sorry, but it did happen.
I didn't.
I'm reading the data now.
I live on forever. I'm not dead, apparently, over there. So, but no, I think when you think about technology and integration, like I think I love what I heard around device things and all these other things that are just monitoring people. Because to your point around isolation, it happens very quickly for seniors, right? So if there's a little ping or something that's happening, at least you know that they're safe, they're moving and they're active. But I think about the board. Like a board is, I could only imagine, and I always put everything in the lens of my parents who, our stepmom's the only one still kicking around, but when they got to do something, they got to be able to just find it. So if I was to go to the cork board and stick up that there was a seniors knitting club, in the scatter of all the other things that you didn't take down or put around, you're not looking at that board. But if as they're going on the elevator, it pops up, there's a nice visual of a senior, and there's the knitting needles, and they'll be like, oh, the knitting club is on Wednesday. So like when you think about technology, it's not always these macro, it's not the Jetsons, right? I mean, is the Jetsons even relevant anymore? It's like Jetsons now.
We're living
now.
the Jetsons.
We are the Jetsons,
in that
right?
year?
It's happening.
Sorry.
The only thing that hasn't happened is you can't kind of wash yourself and get dressed in a machine. Everything else has happened.
I'm sure somebody's doing that somewhere. Yeah,
more fancy.
I'm going to say can't, but I'm sure we just don't know. And the flying car is a thing too. We just
That's
don't.
true.
I can't afford it. So.
Yeah, no.
But that's the kind of thing. So technology-wise,
Yep.
Lisa, what's going on, and what are some of the things that you think are cool in the last little bit technology-wise?
Well, I mean, it's a huge area, and of course, I think we're definitely behind other sectors. I would say amongst our members, the long-term care homes have more. Like they're larger, and especially if they're municipal or there's a lot of fundraising going on, they have more access to things such as tablets. Some of our homes have robots, and they'll talk to the residents or families coming into the home, read them a story, etc. There's a machine where you can go on a bike, and in some of our homes, and you can put in like your neighborhood, even if you were born in another country.
Sure.
And you're basically biking in your neighborhood of
Good memories and everything
where you
else.
grew up. Artificial intelligence is huge. We had a big AI showcase at our conference last year. And so that's an area. Like I think that technology is going to help us with our health human resource challenges, but obviously there's only so far that you're going to go. And there's also a lot of opportunity with intergenerational learning and having younger individuals teach the older adults how to use the technology. But I would say that technology really opened up the world for a lot of older adults during COVID.
Yep.
And I mean, not that it was the best way to be socialized, but like a lot of older adults now are comfortable with going. I mean, when I call my father on the video phone, half the time I see his ear.
Yeah.
But whatever. Right? His ear looks good today. Your ear looks good, Dad. But whatever. Like it's still something.
Yeah.
FaceTime was a detriment for me and my mother. She learned that thing. It was like, you don't need to FaceTime me right now. No.
Digital is like, it's
thanks.
such a big space. I would say from my lane in the housing provider world, it's kind of daunting to think about what is our role in enabling these best practices that are very clear, right? Like digital literacy, the ability to engage with social supports, health supports in a digital way is such a frontier. And I think we see that from where we sit, but what's our role in it? We're very tactical today. I would say, aside from those bigger system conversations I mentioned we're having, we're very focused on how do we make the tenants we have access to and who are willing to use our programs and partner with us, how do we make them better like digital citizens or better at engaging with that sort of stuff? And that's really come down to, in our lane, programming on digital literacy. So we have an amazing partnership with the Toronto Public Library to go around on a rotating basis to a number of our communities and build that digital literacy. Tenants absolutely adore it. So that's a really meaningful program. It's tied closely to, we are working with ConnectTO in Toronto to bring Wi-Fi into our common spaces of our buildings, because again, you can't have digital programming if you don't have access to the internet. So as you can imagine, those two things aren't happening at the same time on the exact same path. Some buildings have Wi-Fi, some don't. What does that mean for our ability to build that digital literacy? So we're learning a lot at the sort of tactical level to try to make sure that from where we sit, we can help tenants be better at technology. That's one of the priorities when we talk to them, they raise often. So again, just raising that in the context, it's such a big, there's so much potential, and I think we're open to receiving those ideas and learning from experts on what we could do. And in our world, we try to operationalize it in a very tactical way and make our tenants a great place to pilot, test, try, bring in new technology, because we have that captive group.
Love it. Do you want to add anything to that? Because this is just hot. It's the hottest question period we're going to have in a little while, and we're going to get it going.
It's flowing.
Flowing.
We got questions.
Maybe one follow-up question.
Yeah. Absolutely, as we're moderating together, my co-host.
I love it.
I love it.
No, need it anymore.
Listen, you and I
has all
you
this
and I next
knowledge.
year. It's all good, man. Andrew and the scientists.
There you go.
AI Andrew and the scientists.
There you go. Yeah, just to pick up on one of the strengths of Toronto Seniors Housing, as we mentioned, the tenant survey, correct? And trying to inform your services around that feedback. I believe there were some maybe interesting or surprising insights about what your residents wanted when it came to technology. I remember being the digital training. Was there something else I'm missing there, or anything on the maybe the simpler, less cost intensive side that seemed to bring a lot of value there?
Around digitization, you mean, specifically? So we're really, the primary thing we're hearing from tenants is we want to be able to use our technology in the building, so that's the Wi-Fi piece, and we want to know how to use it for unique and different things, like getting support, like connecting to our family members, like engaging in social programming. We also hear a lot around intergenerational. So we are partnering with a few organizations that do digital literacy training through intergenerational, peer or pal, pen pal's the wrong word, but phone pal, to keep you engaged, and through that learning how to use your devices more effectively. So that's a big piece of what we're hearing. I don't think there was anything else in that survey that I'm missing, if I can recall, but digital continues to be a big piece for our tenants.
Thanks.
And your approach to that, if I'm correct, you're mentioning largely based off of leveraging partnerships, correct? 100%
leveraging partners. Yeah, I don't think today we have any teams that are focused on that. I wish that would be a nice area that we could add on to our partnership work, but we are completely reliant on other organizations coming to us coming to them, based again on those priorities set by the tenants and that insight they give us into what they want and need.
Tenant engagement. That we're right into it. That's a question that came in two different ways. Is how do you understand? How do you get out to your tenants, and how do you understand that engage? How do you do the engagement piece? How do your members do it? How do you guys do it directly? What are some of the effective methods to really understand what the needs of the tenants are, so we can start doing, whether it's pilots, whether it's programming, whatever that may be.
We have so many members. They do different things. A combination of surveys, having councils, like for formal groups, whatever you might call them, in place, and then just sort of like on an everyday basis, asking how are we doing, how are things going. So like it's not something that you just do once a year. It's like a constant thing. But doing some kind of formal like surveying to see what needs are also really important.
Yeah, for us, it's a big part of my portfolio and a multi-layered approach. So our tenant engagement model is called Community Connect Plus, and really what we built and the intention of that model, it's a bunch of circles layered on top of each other. If I had the visual in front of me, we integrate and connect with our tenants at multiple different levels of their relationship with TSHC or as a citizen of Toronto, and in multiple different modes in that way. So in our Community Connect Plus model, we have a building level, a region level, because we break our portfolio into 4 regions, and then we have city-wide levels of engagement with our tenants, or portfolio-wide levels. So at the building level, we have tenant circles. So we work with our tenants to create a group-style democratic decision-making structure. Not only do we go to that group of volunteers for insights and information about their building, but they personally set the priorities. Once the priorities are set at a building level, that circle of 8 to 10 volunteers represent their building and tell us what types of programming. We have pockets of funding that we can provide directly to tenants for them to run their own events and self-start and do it as a peer-led sort of event. So we have building level engagement. We have regional level, which we have tenant regional volunteer meetings. So 4 times a year, we bring together our tenant volunteers. We do a little bit of capacity building at their request, bring us some interesting people, some interesting information so we can learn and continue to stay active as seniors ourselves. And then we also use that time to engage them on policy and procedure. So it starts right at that regional level. And then at the portfolio-wide level, we have a senior tenants advisory committee. So it's now made up of 24 members, equally represented across our 4 regions. And again, our senior management team attends that, chairs that meeting, and another layer where we're getting that sort of policy and program buy-in. And it will not go to the board if we do not have STAC is the acronym, STAC or regional level support and approval for what we're moving forward on. And then finally at the city level, we have 2 tenant members on our board of directors. So we're getting that very direct steer and guidance. I'm sure other organizations have similar makeups for their governance, but we get that all the way up at the top. So we have multiple layers, and it comes in multiple forms. We use surveys. We use in-person meetings quite often. We use committee-style discussions. We use democratic-style discussions. We're constantly asking at those different levels. If anyone wants to know more about Community Connect Plus, happy to share our learnings. It's been a really exciting model to see realized at the organization. So really permeating ourselves as much as possible.
So yes, that's awesome. Second additional question is, how do you, you talked a lot about partnerships, right? So how are you guys getting out there and finding those partners or pitching your ideas, et cetera? What is that process? How could people who are listening to this today, even if they're not part of larger groups or associations or direct agencies, how do they integrate some of these practices and go out and find partners?
I think that the key to success at this point in time is through partnerships. Mm-hmm. And so there's many different groups you could approach. One is Ontario Health. The other is your local Ontario Health at Home. Mm-hmm. Other community groups and other service providers in your area. You also could work with local hospitals. You could work with municipalities, and or just religious groups or cultural groups. I mean, you have to sort of really spread it out and get out there and have those conversations. And it takes a while to form trust and form relationships and form meaningful partnerships, but you have to start with a conversation. Yeah. And just sort of let people know who you are, where you're from, and what some of the needs are, and how perhaps you could contribute on your end to things.
Ours is right now, I would say, I was just having some conversations in the halls of the conference. It's a lot about education and awareness for those other sectors and partners. So there's a whole host of partners who already know community housing, social housing, what it's like to partner with us very operationally, but also strategically, where we sit as a sector. But there's a whole world of additional partners that may not have traditionally worked with housing organizations or in our space, in our collective space, but we know could be effective partners on our journey for aging in place. So a lot of telling our story. What is social housing? What is TSHC in the context of who do we serve? What do those people want and need? And then we kind of go from there. We really have realized that just as much as, I spoke about, I don't know a ton about the aging in place best practices from a health sector perspective, or I'm not deeply immersed in how social service organizations do it themselves. I know what housing does. I know who we house, I know our considerations, and I know how to make those connections. So we're spending a lot of time educating, having those conversations, seeing where we can find those mutual synergies. And sometimes it's at those bigger tables in those governance rooms that we're in, like our partnership table. And other times it's very organic, right? We're meeting people at events like this and just creating that space to educate and hopefully create interest, quite frankly, to work with us and choose us as a partner. Because again, we have 15,000 captive seniors who are interested in supports, and we have space to offer in most places. So we're looking for those partners for sure.
Just making sure my co-host had nothing to add.
Co-moderator, anything to add?
Just double check. I'm just double checking.
Oh, no further questions.
Back to the other moderator.
An observation from your experiences. I'm not sure if I'm counting from you, Deanna, like 10, 20 different partnerships. So I think what you
59 different agencies right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some sort of
My job.
No. So additional question. It's an interesting one around consent, because I think we when you create a space, and all these things are available, but then you straddle that line of, wow, that person needs a lot more help and support, and you're knocking the door and you're seeing what's going on. Is there an issue with consenting seniors wanting to partake in this stuff for whatever reason? And how do you manage that, or is it just what it is?
It's really tough, and I used to run the home care at Circle of Care, and we had thousands of clients, and some of them they chose to live at risk, and there was nothing we could do. They would be in their apartments, they would leave the door unlocked, they couldn't get, like they would ask they would be bedbound, and they would ask the staff to leave the door unlocked, and they'd be living like in an apartment building in downtown Toronto with an unlocked door, and that's how they wanted to live. And so, I mean, I think it's a combination of like allowing people to live the way they wish, but trying to work with them to get more supports. And I think a lot of us face this even with our own parents, right? Like these are people who have lived independently for many, many years, and now you're going to tell them what to do. That doesn't work so well. And it really is a challenging one, and I think it requires special skills, special relationships, getting the right people to talk with them. But in the end, people have the ability to live how they wish to live.
It works terribly in a Jamaican household, too. With my mom, listen, you can't tell them Jamaican women nothing, man. And it's a good thing, because they teach you very well.
Yeah, well, I up you with a Jewish mother.
They're kind of, you know what? I think that's our next podcast next year.
Oh my God! Don't throw in my Italian and Greek mothers in there too.
Make that whole thing happening. I think that's the next Golden Girls. We could all retire after that podcast.
An age in place.
Done a full hour banter.
Sorry, Deanna. Did you have anything to add on the consent piece?
The thing I was going to add, I was going to talk about it. That's I call that a wicked problem in our world, or an emerging one, I would say, from where I sit, as I think about and have these amazing conversations about partnering more with other organizations where either we're going to see tenant needs pop up that we need to communicate, either consent to take that information and then communicate, and vice versa. We know that there are other practitioners in the building who know about where our tenants are at and what they're facing and what supports they might need. So consent is one piece, and I think for all the community housing providers in this room, we've all dealt with consent as a challenge when it comes to supporting tenants, getting information. I've encountered that many times in my housing career. When it comes to aging in place, there's this added dimension around information sharing. I have no idea what that's going to look like with the health sector. I have to be honest, this is an emerging space for me, and I think for all of us to say there are real moments operationally where there is information that we wish and want to take and be able to share with partners, either to get better health access or be shared with us so we can chase better programs. The case studies abound, but how we share that information, I don't know. The last time I embarked on that journey with Ontario Works and the social services system, it took us 5 years to sign a memorandum of understanding, and then another 5 to even think about implementing a version of consent and information sharing. And those were both city divisions serving from the same system, the same master. So in this context now, I don't know what that's going to look like. We face the same challenges we all do with consent, and then this added layer of we're going to know more because we provide integrated services. But can we do anything with that information information, and is that our position as a housing provider to do stuff with that information? I don't know if that's what tenants expect of us, knowing that they live independently in our particular case. So a lot of layers. I don't have an answer per se for the podcast, but lots of layers here.
No, I don't, and I just wanted to address it because it was a
Good question.
I do think
Really good question.
It is one of those ones because of who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
We'll always want to step in and intervene, but at some point you may or may not be able to, right?
Yeah,
So,
and you may be regulated differently if you start to do that.
well, yeah.
Right? So
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, Lisa, did you want to add something? No, that was dun, dun, dun.
dun dun dun,
Got it,
right?
yeah.
Ooh,
Another conversation.
yes, it is.
Next podcast.
That's a whole podcast itself. Yeah.
I think I love how we roll the podcast. I got my guy doing the 5, 10, 15s and all that
Love
stuff. So
this.
we're running up on time, which
Already?
is
No.
that's what I mean. It's so super. Like when you're hanging out,
much banter.
hanging out, chatting amongst friends and everybody watching you chat, and time just flies. It's amazing. But the one thing that I do want to, I want to say it and I don't. So okay, two things. Somebody asked a long question that started. We live in a beautiful and challenging time. I won't get to that one, but please come up and ask the question, and they're here
Please do.
all day. But the one thing around I say that the straddle line of housing and care sectors. This morning we did the Lifetime of Service Awards in our organization, and it was beautiful to see the dedication of people who were working here 1 year before I was born. Like, so you had 40 plus years of service. It just also indicates to me that there's this refresh happening. And I've also known this going through my my parents' health journey until they passed, was that there's a limited amount of people going into the care space, like PSWs and all that stuff. Are you guys finding that challenging, where even though the model's there, the will is there, when it comes down to the implementation, it's a struggle? So is there something we should be doing through advocacy around lobbying the workforce of that workforce and that labor force to get stimulated?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we're working with 9 other associations to say that if you work in community health and you do a similar job to someone in the hospital, you should be getting the same pay.
Excellent.
And it is absolutely shocking and unacceptable that that is not the case in Ontario today. And but it's also
They're clapping. They're clapping.
Or they're clapping now. Anyhow, so that's one of the big things for sure. And then just generally, I mean, I think some of it could be ageism. Like, it's really cool to be a paramedic, right? But is it cool to be a PSW? Like, is it like trendy to be a PSW?
And it's real work.
But
It's hard
they
work.
they are making the difference in people's lives every day. And the work, like, these people are like angels. The work that they do is, it's so important. And the people couldn't survive. They couldn't get dressed without the PSW. They couldn't get bathed. I mean, it's very personal work, and it's really special. And so we need to find a way to promote these kinds of careers generally, and then also make sure that we close that wage gap that exists, so that people want to work out in the community and not have to work in a hospital.
I think the social services workforce is facing something similar, right? There's been some policy change back and forth, but again, that similar sort of burnout, that need for advocacy to support that sector with the right pay, to bring more people in to do more of this work that's only growing in demand.
That's it.
We're out of time?
On that note,
Oh, my notes. I had so many things to say.
you can say it,
kidding.
but it won't be recorded or on the
It won't be,
podcast.
okay.
The camera.
So it's just everyone just listening to me talk.
Or not even. They're going to be taking out their headsets. walking
They need
around.
to go on a break.
I was going to say it's going to be kind of you and
here.
it could be kind of you and you,
done.
but
They're done.
it does look and feel good when you can hear your voice. But they'll be gone doing more trade showing and
As
all
they
other
should,
stuff.
as they
But hey, everybody, and actually, first off, I just want to thank the panel. You guys were awesome, Lisa, Deanna, Adam.
you.
They are actually clapping now. Amazing.
I can hear it.
I love it. I love it.
go.
And thank you all out in the audience for participating in our podcast.